we utilize the fine money for the marginalized communities in need, especially seeing where our world is presently. I am here for peace, love, and greatness. So stop distracting me and my team and appreciate the art. We move different over here. I do not talk to pawns, Kyrie says. My attention is worth more. Paul Pierce, is this fine? And is Kyrie's words something, nothing, or everything?
It's definitely something, but Kyrie has to understand, man, this is what comes with the job. You know, you're a role model, you're a superstar, whether you're a basketball player, an actor, or whatever field you're in the limelight, and this all comes with your job. It's only a distraction if you let it be a distraction, but you gotta understand, when you signed up for this, when you got drafted, when you signed these big contracts, when you're a superstar in this league, this is what you sign up for.
So this is everything to me, Rachel, and it's not because he called the media pawns. He doesn't have to like the media, that's fine. But, 2.5 years ago, I went to North Dakota when Kyrie Irving went to the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe Reservation. And he went there for several reasons. And he gave those kids and those people there an incredible day as he officially joined the tribe. He donated $100,000 that day, and that was important. But the real important, and why the media were there, was because the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe wants people who have been adopted out of their community to come back home. And Kyrie's mother was adopted out of that community. And the media giving attention to that was their ability to show to the outreach of their nation to come back. And that's where the media and awareness and the NBA players can work together. Now, I am very aware that Kyrie Irving has donated several $1 million just this year to charity endeavors. I am aware that he gave food and masks to the Standing Rock Sioux again this year. I'm aware of what he meant for those kids when on that day in North Dakota, he stood there for hours and shook every single one of their hands to give them a moment. And being there to document that was so important, not just because it's to give Kyrie Irving that he did a good deed, but because of what it means to that entire community. And for Kyrie, for somebody who cares so deeply about his outreach and what he does outside the basketball court, to act like the media doesn't play a role in that, it's just a misjudgment. And ultimately, I'm going to judge Kyrie Irving on what he does on that rectangle that's the basketball court going forward, and that's unfortunate, because we really should have a bigger conversation about what Kyrie does all around, because he is doing special things.
Well, I want to put Kyrie Irving's mind at ease in terms of fines, the way fines work in the NBA Association and the NBA split that money, and then they farm it out to different charities. So that money is going to a good place, Kyrie, so that is good. And then in terms of the relationship with the media, enjoy the finer things in life, but helps him donate and give to the causes that are so important to him. A lot of that comes from the television contracts and the billions of dollars that pour into the league through talking to the media, being available, being a personality who is larger than life, not just what you say on the basketball court, but what you say off of it, having that voice and having the money that frankly comes with that voice that allows you to do the things you want to do, both personally and for a greater cause. And there is absolutely a way to play basketball without the media, without being fined for not talking to the media. There are courts all over this country where you can just go hoop. If you love the game and you don't want all the attendance stuff around it, I get it, man, and that is available to you. If you want to opt into this version, there are rules, and there are rules that show a respect, not for any reporter per se, but for the fans who get that information, who get to connect to you through TV, through print, through video, through all the different ways that they get to do it. And I would just encourage him also to think a little bit about that as he moves forward. But as the fines pile up, yes, Kyrie, they are going to a good place. All right, let's move on to Paul George. Games tips off tonight, people. It's very exciting for all of us. But with only 11 days left till opening night, still so many questions and concerns heading into the most unconventional season in the 75-year history of the association. On Thursday, the U.S. set a record for COVID-19 related fatalities for the second day in a row, surpassing 3,000 300 deaths. There were also around 220,000 new cases reported yesterday in this country. There's some light at the end of the tunnel thanks to vaccines that are being developed and already administered in other countries. Yesterday, an FDA panel granted emergency use authorization for a COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer and a German partner company. We could see the first COVID vaccinations in America by early next week. Now, Brian, you wrote about how the NBA is crafting policy to manage widespread use of COVID vaccines. What are some of the biggest question marks at this point? Because it is such a complex issue.
Yeah, this is another unprecedented challenge for the NBA to deal with. Just based on the timing of everything, Rachel, the NBA has got a good chance to be the first pro league to try to have to deal with a policy across its player population. We don't know when that might be available. The NBA was very clear in me talking to them. They're not looking to jump the line. They realize that they've got to wait and make sure that everybody is taken care of in front of them. That said, there are health professionals out there who are saying that giving it to professional athletes earlier in this timetable might make some sense because it can show people in the public who are worried about this that it's safe and effective. The problem is they've got to show the players that it's safe and effective, and you've also got to consider, do you mandate this? Do you say players have to get this vaccine? There's other health protocols that the league does, whether it's having drug testing, whether it's getting an EKG, that they mandate that you have. This is going to be very delicate and obviously could have a big impact on this season.
Paul, if it were you, would you want to take this vaccine? Where are you on this?
I'm kind of split in between. First, I need to get more information on this. Who were tested first and what was the outcome? Is it 100% effective? Is it 70, 50% effective? There's so many questions that have to be asked, I believe, before you could just go in and say, hey, we have a vaccine for a virus. Who are the people who got tested first that said it's quite effective? I'm sure there were, or it wouldn't be passed at this point. But who set that example? So I'm kind of 50-50 on it right now. And then think about the players or whose family who have had COVID and recovered from it. Do they feel like a vaccine is even necessary? I know some people recover, some people don't. So I'm really split on it right now.
Yeah, that issue is complicated, right? Because people who have already had COVID, they have antibodies. We can test for that. So we know that that's true. What we don't know, because it's such a new virus, we don't know how long those antibodies protect you. There are some cases, there have been some in this country and around the world, where people have reinfection, where they thought that they were protected because of their antibodies, but there is a different infection. They've actually genome tested, and there's a different strain of the virus that is affecting them. So that is a question mark. Earlier this week, Brian, we discussed the protocols the NBA is implementing to minimize the rise of infection for players, coaches, staff, refrain from going to restaurants, bars, large family gatherings. This really is impacting players' day-to-day lives. But you do have more than 100 players who've tested positive for COVID since the lead up to the Orlando bubble. League only has around 500 players to begin with. How do you think players who have already tested positive, Brian, and who have these antibodies are going to react to being so limited in their daily lives?
This is exactly it, Rachel. And, it's probably way more than 100 because the NBA has announced 100 positive tests between the restart back in the summer and the beginning of training camp now. That doesn't include the players who contracted the virus during the shutdown and also in the offseason. And you talk to trainers and other people who work with players, agents, they think that number is at least double, maybe more. They think that upwards of 40% of the league has maybe dealt with it. And so you're telling people who probably have been going to nightclubs and restaurants because they feel safe that they can't do that. And this is just a thorny issue. Then there's this, Rachel. In the initial trials of this vaccine, and I'm getting this from talking to doctors, team doctors, some people get sick, especially with the second shot for a day or two. And if a player already has antibodies and doesn't feel he needs to take it, he may not want to get a shot that's going to get him sick for even a day or two. And then there's the issue that you can still possibly carry the virus even if you've had the vaccine. So they may ask players to continue wearing masks and socially distance even after having the vaccine. And that's going to be a tough sell. And I think what Paul just described, that 50-50 mentality, that's what I'm hearing from agents and teams, that they are going to really have to educate their players to convince them to partake in this wholesale.
Paul, what do you think?
That's the biggest thing, education. And I don't...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, what do you think the dynamic is going to be in the locker room, Paul? Because we've seen in other sports, in baseball and football, there is a sense of responsibility to each other, right? No one wants to bring this into the locker room, infect other people, affect other people's lives and families. But also, guys are used to having personal freedom. So how much responsibility do you think players will feel to each other or hold each other accountable for? What's that dynamic like?
Well, you got to understand right now in the current situation that we're in, a lot of bars and restaurants are open anyway right now to the public. You know, I live here. I live here in California. I think the biggest adjustment may be like, okay, the grocery store, or just being around family and friends, and the players. You know, they're going to be around each other every day, and they're going to abide by the same rules anyway. You know, I know the league is saying, no, you can't go here, but you got to understand. You can't do those things already, especially here. I'm here in California, Los Angeles, New York, places like New York. I can understand it's different in Florida, Atlanta, and maybe Texas. You know, they'll have to make an adjustment in those states. But